There is one fundamental mistake that prevents most bodybuilders from ever reaching their true muscular potential. And it's not necessarily genetics, it's not lack of discipline, it's not effort, it's not poor nutrition. The real problem is that most people are not actually training their muscles, they are training movements. And there is the profound difference between the two. Most bodybuilders believe that if they move the weight from point A to point B, they will stimulate muscle growth. But muscle growth does not occur because weight has been moved. Muscle growth only occurs when enough stimulation has been applied to the muscle tissue. Muscle growth occurs because muscle fibers were forced to produce sufficient mechanical tension. The body doesn't know how much weight is on the bar. The body doesn't know if you are performing squats, leg press, or hack squats. The body doesn't know if you are following a bodybuilding program or weightlifting program. The body only knows one thing: how much mechanical tension was placed directly on the muscle fibers. Unfortunately, most people spend years learning how to move weight rather than how to stress muscle. Walk into almost any gym and you will see the same thing. People swinging dumbbells while doing biceps curls. People bouncing the barbell when doing bench press. Performing explosive repetitions in every exercise. People locking out every repetition. Also using momentum to move the load that the target muscle cannot actually control. And then they wonder why they are not growing. The truth is that bodybuilding and weightlifting are not the same activity. Weightlifting is all about moving weight, and bodybuilding is all about creating muscular stress. If your goal is to optimize muscular development, then every repetition must be designed to maximize stress on the target muscle rather than maximize the amount of weight moved. And this is why some individuals use moderate weights and they build tremendous amount of muscle, while some others are using very heavy weights without developing muscle at all. Because muscle doesn't respond to ego, muscle doesn't respond to numbers, muscle responds only to stress. And the greatest mistake most bodybuilders do is confusing movement performance with muscular stimulation. Today I want to explain exactly what causes muscle growth, where the greatest muscular stress occurs, and why so many bodybuilders are using techniques which are actually slowing down their muscle growth. If we want to understand muscle growth, we have to begin with one of the most important concepts in exercise physiology, and this is mechanical tension. For many years, bodybuilders believed that muscle growth has caused mainly by muscle damage or metabolic stress. Today, the scientific evidence points overwhelmingly towards one primary mechanism, and this is mechanical tension. Muscles grow when they are forced to produce high levels of force over time, but not all force production is equal. Research increasingly suggests that muscle fibers experience greatest anabolic stimulus when they are producing force while simultaneously being stretched. In other words, muscles grow most effectively when they are under heavy tension in their lengthened position. And this is something that actually every bodybuilder has to understand. Let us look at some examples. When you perform squats, where are your quadriceps under the greatest stress? Obviously, not at the top, because you can stay there as long as you want. Nothing is happening. Not even halfway. The greatest stress actually occurs at the bottom position when your quadriceps is fully stretched. And this is where your quadriceps produces enormous amount of force while stretched. The same principle applies for leg press. The greatest tension does not occur when your legs are nearly straight. It occurs when your knees are deeply bent. This is the position when your quadriceps is again fully stretched and under great stress. Now consider, for example, bench press. The same applies for bench press. When your bar is almost touching your chest, this is where your chest is fully stretched and under the maximum stress from the load that you are using. Contrary to the popular belief, much stress doesn't happen when you are fully contracting your chest while doing bench press. This is not true. When you're fully contracting your chest muscles during bench press or any other press, and your arms are almost in the locked position, this is where your chest are under the least stress. The same principle applies to flies, dumbbell flies. The highest level of stress actually happens when you are fully stretched in the bottom position. Again, the same principle applies to pull downs. When you are fully stretched at the top position, this is when your muscles are actually experiencing the highest mechanical tension. Also, when you're doing rowing movements, when they are fully stretched, your latissimus and your trapezius are under the highest stress. So this is actually the position in which your muscles are receiving the highest possible stress from the load that you're using. And once this is understood, you should completely change the way you think about training. Because if muscle growth happens at the fully stretched position under the load, then you should be aware of performing your set in a perfect form and paying attention to that fully stretched position rather than just completing the repetition. Your body is not counting repetitions. The body is not counting sets. The body is responding to tension. And tension is greatest when muscles are forced to work hard while elongated in the most stretched position. This brings us to one of the most important principles in bodybuilding. Why do basic compound exercises build most muscle mass? And the answer is simple, because they create the greatest mechanical tension. So exercises like squats, leg press, bench press, incline presses, pull-ups, pull-downs, rowing movements, and similar allow the muscle to produce tremendous amount of force through large range of motion. These exercises provide the greatest loading. You will never use the same amount of load in other exercises as you will use in your basic multi-joint exercises. Also, they allow for greatest stretch on the heavy load. Also, they cause greatest motor unit recruitment and therefore the greatest total mechanical tension. Obviously, the greatest bodybuilders ever all build their bodies using basic multi-joint exercises. Remember this. Arnold Schwarzenegger, Serge Nubret, Sergio Oliva, Lee Haney, Ronnie Coleman, and so many others. They all understood that you will never build a great body without using basic multi-joint exercises. And this is why bodybuilding should not become simply some kind of exercise collection contest, as we see today. People are coming up with all kind of new exercises. Apparently, they are discovering America again. You do this exercise, use these cables, these angles, and you will develop great muscle mass. No, you will not. You don't need 20 different exercises. You need exercises that create greatest mechanical tension, because muscle responds to stress, not exercise variety. And if there is one message that I want you to remember from the entire video, is this: muscles grow where they experience the greatest tension, and the greatest tension always occurs in the stretch position. So let's examine this carefully. In the squat, the greatest quadricep stress occurs below parallel. So you have to go down, you have to go deep. So forget about these half squats, so, wonderfully created theories that you don't have to go all the way down. No, you have to go all the way down, because this is the nature of exercise. This is where the highest mechanical tension happens. The highest level of stress happens when your quadriceps is fully stretched under load, and this is the bottom position. The same applies to bench press. When the barbell is almost touching your chest, this is where you actually cause the most stress. A lot of people put a lot of weight, but they don't go all the way down. They go from halfway up in order to lift heavier, but that doesn't do anything. So it has to happen at the bottom. You need to stretch fully your chest. Therefore, you have to go down with the bar all the way to your chest, almost touching the chest. When it comes to pull-ups and pull-downs, the greatest lat stress actually occurs when the arms are fully stretched overhead. So you cannot just do half reps or half motion in order to lift heavier. You need to fully stretch under the load. When you do rows, the greatest stretch actually occurs and the greatest stress when you are fully extended with the barbell at the bottom position. This is when you put the most stress on your latissimus and also on your trapezius. And notice the pattern. The greatest muscular stimulus almost never occurs during peak contraction. it occurs during loaded stretch. What are you facing in the gyms today? People are using all kind of apparently ergonomically perfectly created equipment which allows you for full contraction. But this is wrong because your body doesn't respond with the same mechanical tension in the fully contracted position. It does respond with full mechanical tension only in the fully stretched position under the load. If your goal is maximum hypertrophy, you should learn to respect the stretch under load. This is the most important part of your repetition. Not from the halfway up, but actually from the halfway down. So if you are squeezing, pumping, posing, trying to fill your muscles more than anything else, the growth is not going to happen. Just watch the video clips of greatest bodybuilders ever and how they perform, for example, bench press, pull-ups, pull-downs, rows, etc. Because stretch is where muscle growth begins. Now we arrive at the very controversial part. Most people believe that full range of motion is the secret for optimal muscle growth, that you have to fully stretch and fully contract the muscle. But this is a problem because there is a major difference between anatomical range of motion and effective muscular range of motion. So remember that. Yes, you can fully contract the muscle anatomically, but that does not have to be the most productive way to create maximum mechanical tension. Consider, for example, bench press. When you completely lock your elbows at the top, where actually you achieve full contraction, or let's say you are using some chest machine in which you are fully contracting your muscles by pushing the way all the way up, elbows all the way in, and you think you are doing something really special by doing that, the reality is no, you're not. That fully stretched position is what matters, not necessarily the full range of motion, especially in basic multi-joint exercises, which are the most productive exercises for muscle growth. Similarly, the same thing happens when you do squats. When you do the full range of motion, you go all the way down and go all the way up, you're actually losing the tension. You're losing that mechanical tension because you're going all the way up. So your quadriceps, they start relaxing, and they fully relax when you complete the repetition ending all the way up. So you see, the full range of motion is not necessarily what you should be looking for. If you observe how greatest bodybuilders ever did, for example, squats, for example, Ronnie Coleman, he never went all the way up. The whole set consists in going all the way down and maybe 2/3 of the movement up and then down. Why was he doing that? Because he was simply keeping the mechanical tension constant during the motion, and especially at the bottom position when mechanical tension is the greatest, when he was actually causing the most muscle growth. And it's not just Ronnie Coleman. Most other famous bodybuilders did absolutely the same thing. Look at Arnold, look at Serge Nubret, look at Jay Cutler, Phil Heath. You can see so many video clips of them training and never locking, never finishing that full range of motion. Doing, for example, hammer strength incline press. Phil Heath is going maybe halfway up, but all the way down, and halfway up, all the way down. So obviously they understood something, that actually the most effective part of the motion, of the repetition, is that one which is like from half of the movement from the top, or maybe 2/3, you go all the way down, but you fully stretch your muscles. So this most important advice, lecture from this section should be that full joint movement is not always the same thing as full muscular tension. Now, having said that, I didn't think about and I didn't speak about some isolating exercises that can be performed and they can be beneficial, especially using machines. For example, when you perform pec deck, which is isolating exercise, is not a basic exercise, you can fully stretch and you can also fully contract with great benefit. When you do biceps curls on the machine, the tension will be constant throughout the motion. So you can perform these techniques like peak contraction, for example, while using pec deck machine, while using a biceps curl machine, because they allow for full tension throughout the motion. But these exercises are isolating exercises. So I was talking about the main basic multi-joint exercises which are bread and butter for building maximum muscle mass for everybody, for natural bodybuilders and also enhanced. So make sure that you understand the difference. So let us be now a little bit more practical. How should you actually perform every repetition? Now, the first rule is that you need to control your eccentric part of the repetition. So when you are lowering the weight, either you're doing squats, you're doing leg press, you're doing bend over rows, you are doing pull-ups, pull-downs, bench press, incline press, you need to control that eccentric part of the, or lowering part of the repetition. And that should be at least 2 seconds. So 2 to 3 seconds, sometimes 4, depending on individual, should be my advice to everyone, either natural or enhanced, for maximum cause of muscle growth. If you want your muscles to really grow, you have to really focus on this eccentric part of the motion. Second, you need to always reach the loaded stretch. So when you go down with weights, either you do bench press, incline press, rows, squats, whatever basic exercises, you want to fully stretch that muscle as much as possible, obviously, under the load, because this is where mechanical tension is the highest. Third, avoid explosive bouncing, because when you bounce the weight, momentum is taking over, is not your muscle. So muscle doesn't do much. Because of the momentum of that bounce effect, the weight will go up. So never do that. Fourth, absolutely avoid the full lockout, because muscular tension immediately disappears. So when you do bench press or squats, for example, or leg press, never go all the way up, never lock, because your targeted muscle will simply relax and tension will disappear. Fifth, train close to failure. You should stop your set before you reach that last rep. I have explained in so many videos why is that necessary, because the most effective sets are actually the ones that you bring them close to failure. They will also allow you to do more sets per exercise, and that will accumulate more quality, high productive reps at the end of your session. Sixth, keep the tension on the targeted muscle. So that means you need to perform in perfect form, because if you don't, you will be using your joints, your connective tissues, momentum, but not that targeted muscle itself. So for example, when you do biceps curls, don't swing to lift heavier. Use the weight that you can use in recommended number of reps in perfect form, paying attention to eccentric part, and this is the only way that you will stimulate maximum muscle growth. So never lose the tension by training your ego and using all these silly techniques like cheating or just for the reason of lifting heavier. This will be disaster. Not only that will stop you growing, but also it will definitely increase the risk of injuries. And remember, bodybuilding is not weightlifting. It's not an exercise in moving objects. It is an exercise in applying stress on the targeted muscle. So once again, bodybuilding is not moving objects. Bodybuilding is about putting the stress on the muscle. And your body doesn't know how much weight you are using. Your body doesn't know if you are doing squats with 100 or 200 kgs. What body understands is only how much stress has been put on the muscle that you're targeting. And the greatest tension, again, and remember this, happens when your muscle is fully stretched under the load. You need sufficient range of motion and also with controlled execution. Especially important thing to remember is to train close to failure. And if you understand these principles, you will begin to train differently. You will stop chasing numbers. You will stop chasing your ego. You will stop trying to impress other people in the gym, and you will begin to do what actually builds muscle. And this is putting enough stress on the muscle. After more than 40 years in bodybuilding, competing 46 times, winning 17 titles, coaching over 3,500 clients, and helping them to get in the best shape of their lives, I have published for you 13 ebooks which are fully loaded with detailed explanation about everything that you always wanted to know about bodybuilding. So if you want to start growing muscles and burning body fat, click on the link in the comments and you can download my ebooks. And for the people who want to learn how to train in perfect form, which is absolutely critical for building muscles, I have published for you Bodybuilding Blueprint course, in which I personally demonstrate and explain the most effective exercises for all major muscle groups. So if you want to learn how to train in perfect form and stop wasting time in the gym, click on that link in the comments and you can access my Bodybuilding Blueprint course. So guys, I hope that you have enjoyed this video, and if you did, please subscribe to my channel, like the video, share the video, and also send me your comments, and I will see you in the next video.